Hey, welcome to the Midlife Freedom podcast. It's lovely to have you here. I'm your host, Lindsay de Swart. Nice to see you. Today's show is really fun. My guest is Emma Vallis, and she and her husband, Alan, decided in midlife to sell up everything and to move to a houseboat. And they now run art classes from that houseboat in one of the canals down in the south of England. So, obviously, the episode is all about how do you make that decision? How does that conversation ever come up? And how it's all working out for them. And it's a beautiful episode, and I think you'll be really inspired. So listen right to the end, because there's also a great bit in there about empty nesting, which I think you'll love. Okay, see you there. So, hey, Emma, how are you today?
I'm great, thank you. Yeah, thank you for asking me on.
You are so welcome. I am so excited about talking to you today and finding out about your story, because it's really quite an unusual one, and it's just not a lifestyle that people are brave enough to do. So I want to know all the nitty gritty. So can you tell us about you?
Yes, of course. Yeah. So I'm 51. I'm from Basingstoke in the south of England, and I've lived there had lived there for most of my life. I'm married to Alan. We've been married for nearly 27 years now.
Congrats.
Thank you. We've got three grown-up daughters. Eldest one is 27. We've got a 24-year-old and one who's just about to turn 21. And all grown up and living independently now. So we've kind of seized the opportunity to do something for ourselves.
Okay, so what sort of conversation was it that said, okay, well, let's go and buy a boat and we'll move to the boat? How did that actually unfold?
Okay, so I'd probably say that we've always been interested in living a little bit of an alternative life. And sometimes decisions that we've made, even while we lived in the house, have been a little bit quirky at times.
Okay, I'm going to be asking about that.
Yeah. You know, we love a bit of an outdoors lifestyle in general anyway. We've always loved that. But we had our children kind of quite, I think I was 24 when we first started thinking about a family. So had the kids fairly young. And I just worked part-time at that point in life. But even though we wanted a different kind of life, the priority was kind of bringing the girls up and giving the girls a stable home. So that's what we did for many years. We really, as our children got into their sort of mid-teens, we had a few kind of health issues with the girls.
Okay.
So our eldest daughter has scoliosis, which is the curved spine condition.
Yeah.
So she needed several surgeries on her back for that. And that's meant, a lot of hospital visits for her and constant kind of management of that condition. She's now living a great life. She still has a few issues with it, but we had this going on in the background.
Right.
And at the same time that this was going on, our middle daughter also had an illness or a few conditions that played into each other and meant that her breathing was always compromised. She's severely asthmatic. So she was a very poorly girl through her teens. And unfortunately, she had around 40 admissions to hospital over about 4 years. So we kind of lived and breathed, the hospital environment. And if we weren't kind of, in hospital with her in the middle of treatment, then we were kind of at home helping her recover from an admission, trying to get her schooling on track. Trying to look after the other two girls as well.
Yeah.
And our youngest, obviously, she was just merrily going to school and doing all the things that that they do at that age. But it was a very, very difficult time. And thankfully, middle daughter is also now on a much better path. We had an amazing consultant that looked after her. And after many years, managed to get her on some medication that has kind of stabilized her condition. So
good.
Yeah. So we had some tough years there where things felt a little bit dark. And we really just felt that times, life felt a little bit hopeless, really.
Yeah, I understand.
We just felt, I mean, you couldn't even make plans to meet a friend for a coffee or, go to a barbecue or something in the evening. You couldn't make any plans at all because you never knew when you were going to just have to kind of dash out the door and, and go to the hospital. And that was quite an isolating time, really, because you stop making plans. You feel that other people won't necessarily understand what's going on because it was such a difficult time that I think if anybody had said to me that was their story at the time, then I would have thought, well, that can't be right. Surely you can't need to be in hospital every 4. I probably just wouldn't have got it. And I think you kind of start to distance yourself a little bit from people in some ways and keep some things to yourself because you just feel like, oh, people don't want to hear. When you don't have anything positive to say for a very, very long time, you start to kind of shut down a little bit because you feel like, oh, people have already heard me say that, this is difficult or that's difficult. And you just feel that you can't continue feeling that narrative all the time.
Fair enough. But I mean, to be fair also, I think you need to actually conserve your own energy.
Absolutely, you do. You need rest. Obviously, we needed to focus on all of our girls, and it was important that everybody was cared for and looked after. So it was a very difficult time and a time where you kind of felt a little bit, we didn't really know what was going to happen in the future. There was no kind of certainty or security that things would be okay. And in your mind, at times I kind of made all kinds of it's kind of almost you'd bargain with yourself a little bit, like if someone said to me that she will be okay, but you have to give this, and this, and you have to be left with nothing, like I'd do that. You just kind of come up with all these
bargaining with the universe.
Exactly. Yeah. Just kind of thinking, what would it take to get this under control and get her well and whatever. So it was a really difficult time and a kind of a time that threw up a lot of questions. And like I say, just no certainty really for many, many years. But we were very lucky that we were really well supported by an absolutely amazing paediatrician and a couple actually that really, really helped us. And the nursing team that looked after her during those times were just brilliant. They became like our family. It became like a home environment. And in fact, one of my kind of overriding memories of that time is we'd walk down the hospital corridor to kind of go to the lifts and up to the children's ward. And you'd walk past all these paintings that had been on the walls for years and years. And these things become so familiar to you. Every image in there becomes you almost know it too well. And you'd feel like this isn't normal. It's not normal to know a clinical environment in this level of detail unless you work there. So it did really become a bit of a home to us actually. But like I say, when she got to about age 17, things started to stabilize. But it was a real difficult time.
So when did you sort of put your head up into the light almost and say, okay, now we can actually start to focus on creating something new or changing something?
What I would
happened?
say that probably when our daughter started to get a lot better, and you had a lot more certainty over what would happen later that day, what would happen later that month. You could start making plans and thinking ahead. For a while, you kind of just want to just have a normal, stress-free life where there's no ups and downs. You kind of feel a bit, I'm done with all the highs and the lows. We just want a basic, normal life, no frills, just a simple life. And we've always been people that are quite content with a very simplistic way of living anyway, which is obviously standard us in good stead for being on the canal boat. But we've kind of always had those thoughts anyway, that we just want quite a simple life. But mainly we just wanted at that point a stress-free life. And we did live that for quite a few years. And I was fortunate that I started painting and drawing when the children were really small.
That was going to be my next question. When did you start? So just explain, because not everybody, obviously, I've been scouring your social media and stuff, but for people that don't know you, just explain where you are now and what it is that you do.
Yeah, so where we are now, we moved on to a canal boat, a wide beam boat, so about double the size of a narrow boat. Probably for most people, it's about the size of a small one-bedroom apartment. That's the sort of size that we're living on. So we live on the Kennet and Avon Canal.
Mm-hmm.
We have a business that we have started recently from our boat. So I'm a watercolor artist, and we have started a business where we host painting days on our boat. So people come onto the boat, we do some painting tuition, we get to know people, have some kind of chats about canal boat living, about art, about, other people's stories as well. We have a little bit of lunch. We have what we call a canal boat picnic, which is a bit of a feast. It's really delicious.
Lovely.
Using lots of seasonal, locally produced elements. And then everybody makes some beautiful art, coached by me through the afternoon. Alan's there to make the coffees, do all the health and safety, and kind of a little bit of entertaining as well, a little bit of chatting. And we just have a really lovely, tranquil day out on the water, just, enjoying the natural environment of the canal. And just making some lovely art, and hopefully helping people who want to start, maybe people that don't feel that they're creative, people that say to me, oh, I'm not arty at all. We kind of try and flip that and kind of pull out their kind of style through the day. So it's a really lovely thing to do. It makes an absolutely beautiful day out, and it's just such a buzz for us to do this business. We just love it. And when people go home at the end of the day, you kind of feel that you've made friends, you feel that you've really connected, because you spend all day together, and it's a bit of a learning journey. So you kind of go through some highs and lows with people on that little learning journey. They go home and you just feel that you've given them a lovely relaxed day that hopefully for them is a little bit of a slice of tranquility in their busy lives as well. Because we don't do that enough, do we? We don't take those days out of real life enough. There's always something to pull us back.
So how did you actually make that transition? And also I'm intrigued, I mean, did you tell me, did you renovate the boat? Did you buy it done? Tell me about that transition of moving from house living to boat living.
So back in 2020 we started paddleboarding on the canals, and loved it, and started sort of spending all our time, spare time on the canal, just enjoying the environment really, and just really fell in love with it. And I started looking at people that were on their boats, and we were sort of paddling past them, and I would just think to myself, that just looks like an amazing way to live. And I just knew it was something that I would really connect with, even though I'd never done it, never been on a boat before.
No way.
Never been on a canal boat up until that point. I don't know, there was just something about it that sort of spoke to me really. Alan and I had some chats about that, and sort of we both said, oh, that would be a lovely way to live at some point. In truth, I felt I was ready to go with that. I felt like I'm desperate to make some changes. We've settled down into this stress-free life, but I felt like I could look ahead and just see the same for the next maybe 10 or 20 years. And I just felt, maybe because we'd had a lot of high stress and ups and downs in the past, you're kind of almost used to living on a little bit of a highs and lows, a little bit possibly. And I think I just felt like I don't want my life to be boring now. I've had a bit of stress-free time. Now I'm ready for some challenge. But I really wanted sort of positive challenge, and kind of challenge where you don't always know, you're problem solving. You don't always know what's around the corner. You don't always know, how to manage every situation that you find yourself in on a boat. I just wanted a little bit of a positive challenge, really, just to stop life from feeling, well, I've done that now. The kids are grown up, they're independent, what's next? I just felt like I just wanted a little bit of challenge. But I was a little bit ahead of Alan in that process.
Women quite often are in the midlife time. Absolutely. It's very, very common. Yeah.
So I definitely felt that I was ready to go. And Alan was not quite, I think he felt that he might be a little bit bored. And I think he would definitely tell you now that there is no time to be bored. It's a very practical life, but a very purposeful and enjoyable life. But at the time he was a bit like, I do want to do it, but I don't think I'm ready for it now.
Okay.
So I thought, well, we've got to be on the same page with that. So I just parked that idea. But I have to say, I could not get the idea out of my head. I really couldn't. And one day early last summer, we'd had a chat with some really inspiring friends of ours, really positive, engaging people that we always have very thought-provoking conversations with. You always come away from seeing them feeling excited by possibility and excited by life. Just brilliant people. I think that conversation was in my mind a little bit, having spoken to them. And I think we just went for a walk, Alan and I, and we walked along the canal and we sat down on a bank of the canal, the Kennet and Avon, and we just basically said, why are we waiting? Why would we not do this now? And almost in a way, I felt like, still had some years on the mortgage, like most people, you've kind of added to your mortgage over time, and just felt like we don't need this home anymore. Why are we working so hard to just upkeep a home that is a nice home? It was a good life. I'm not saying that wasn't a good life, very respectful, just having a good normal life where everything is fairly settled, but at the same time just felt like it's not a life we need anymore. And it's not necessarily, not just that we don't need it, but kind of almost felt like don't really want this anymore.
You'd outgrown it by the sounds of things.
So you just kind of, I think I just got to that point, and I think Alan was as well by then. We were just kind of feeling a bit like, why are we waiting? Why are we not doing this now? And you probably heard it when people say sometimes, you always think, oh, what's the worst that can happen? And it was the sort of flip side of that is what is the best that could happen. Yeah. And I don't know, some of our fears just started to disappear, and we just sort of started to feel like, let's do this. Why are we wasting time? Why are we not doing this now? We know it's a life where you need to be quite physically fit, and obviously you're kind of getting into your 50s, nothing is promised in life, nothing is guaranteed. So so we just felt like, let's do this. And then a few weeks later, we'd put the house on the market and sold it, got rid of just so many of our possessions, rehomed them, used these recycling apps where people come and pick things up from you from the doorstep. We realized that it was kind of often easier just to give things away. And it was actually, everybody, when they come onto the boat, they always ask us how we got rid of everything, like how did we manage to make those decisions and how did we do it? But actually it was a really, really positive experience. And I really it was an opportunity to kind of relive lots of memories, because you're filtering every single item that you've had in your home for maybe 30 years or whatever. And it was an opportunity to kind of relive all of those memories as you go through each item and remember the value in that time and that object, and how you paid for it, what you did with it, what whether it was useful, whether it wasn't. And then let it go. And you just realize that you don't need all this stuff. You don't need all the things that, are kind of closing in on you, really. And actually, I was a person that was quite good at getting rid of stuff anyway. So
I think you'd need to be to go through what you went through.
Because... And I do appreciate many people do struggle with that. But I think for me, I just didn't really find that a difficult process. It was a nice process to go through. And it's just so nice to think that, there's always someone that needs your stuff. There's always, there's always someone that needs like the bike that you've got that you're not using anymore, or, the pans in your kitchen that, the 3 pans that you never ever use and they're stuck in the cupboard for years. Or, there's always somebody. There's always somebody that wants this stuff, and it's nice to be able to rehome that and give that away. So most of our stuff we gave away, a few things we sold, but you kind of quickly realize just give it away. We've had our value from it. There's nothing that I regret parting with. And there were also, all the kind of sentimental things that you build up through boxes of cards, all the kind of lots of baby bits and, things like that. And we did think carefully about parting with some of those bits, and we have kept a few, but we did end up giving pretty much most of our stuff away.
Yeah.
And so we moved.
I was going to say, with the baby stuff, I allowed myself one shoebox.
Yes. Yeah.
That's it. And that shoebox, it's important to me, but it's full of stuff. Yes. And I only need to hang on to it as long as I need to hang on to it. But that was that was as much as I needed.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. That you realize that you don't need the thing to have the memory. So that was a really good experience. And we were left with a very few belongings to bring with us. Probably only brought a couple of tiny bits of furniture with us. We found a boat that we liked that was at Devizes Marina.
Yep.
We moved on to it just before Christmas.
Wow.
In the worst, literally it was a few days before Christmas, so the coldest point in the year, really. So I think a few people probably thought we were a bit crazy to do that, but
yeah, probably.
But in the end, that was also quite a good move, because we did that really knowing that if we got some of the winter done first, then there'd be nothing to fear. We'd have a bit of experience, of winter. Otherwise, if you move on in the better weather, then you'll be dreading that first winter aboard. So we moved on to the boat. We made a few changes to it. The boat's got a very open layout anyway, and it was quite a well refurbished boat when we moved on to it. We didn't really want a project, because
fair enough.
Part of what was driving this was a need to have a little bit more time together, to enjoy time together. We didn't have to do an awful lot to the boat, but we did install solar.
Right.
So we're completely off grid. So all our energy is, generated by solar or by the engine when that runs, as it will be later, because we're going to be moving the boat later today.
How far do you actually go in it?
So we go about a mile every 2 weeks, which is
So not far then.
No, not very far. So obviously you can go as far as you want to. You can cruise as often as you want to. But the Canal and River Trust, that are kind of the landlords of the canal, their rules are that you move about a mile every 2 weeks. And because we wanted to kind of do this slowly, we wanted to enjoy each area and not kind of whiz through. What would be the point, you have to move anyway. So we just decided we'll just move to the smallest distance each time. So we move every 2 weeks. We also, as part of the license, you have to do a designated journey of about 21 miles a year in one direction. And once you've done those miles, then you can kind of stay a little bit more around one area, although you still have to move, but you could kind of, and you worked in a particular area and wanted to be nearby, then that would make that aspect of it a little bit more manageable. But we don't really have those ties at the moment. So, we can just move sort of as and when. But so we moved on to the boat. One thing that I probably should tell you that we did, and this was before we even knew that we would end up on a boat. Right. We did a lot of extreme walking, kind of cold weather walking at night. I think probably we had that itch where you want to start challenging yourself a little bit. And I think we just wanted to get out and about and see what our bodies could do. Do you know what I mean? See how far you could push. Yeah. And so we started doing some really long walks. So we'd go out and we'd do like a 30-mile walk over a day. Sometimes we'd come back, it'd be 2:00 in the morning, it'd be dark, and you're a bit worse for wear when you come back in. You're a bit sore and a bit tired, and you think, oh, why did we do that? I'm never doing that again. And then
then you do it the next week.
Exactly. So we did a few kind of challenges like that. We did a coast path walk that was really challenging, and with that we did some wild camping where we just had a tarpaulin and bivvy bags. We didn't have a tent, we just kind of camped out. That for me was probably a pivotal point in believing that I could do something that was a bit more difficult.
Yeah, good for you. That's so cool.
Yeah, and I'm not kind of, at school I was not the PE person. I was always the last person to be picked, literally. I've never had that kind of confidence in sort of my abilities physically. And so I think doing those things and realizing that you can push through, you can sort of feel uncomfortable, you can feel hot, you can feel sweaty, you can feel cold, but you're still okay.
Still okay.
Yeah. I think that was pivotal for me personally, not Alan, because he's done a lot of sporty challenges and things like that.
I was going to say, was it as new for him as it was for you?
Yeah, not at all. I mean, he's done a lot of like really long distance bike rides, runs, marathons, all kinds of stuff. So for him, it was a little bit more. That wasn't a challenge so much for him, but definitely for me, it was when I started to do those kind of physical challenges and push myself. I kind of realized, I can do difficult stuff. I can do the things that, I probably would have thought a few years ago, oh no, I'd need to be tucked up in bed with my pajamas on at 9 o'clock at night. I realized I could do some of this stuff. So I think some of it was getting some kind of physical confidence in that respect.
Yeah. And what's the what's your girls' sort of thoughts on it all?
So we wouldn't have been able to do this if our girls were not also incredibly supportive and amazing people. And I think the challenges that they faced, even with our youngest, even though she, didn't have the same kind of physical issues as the other two have had to deal with in their lives, I think for her, she did miss out on a lot of fun times and, that kind of carefree way that you can be with your kids sometimes, wasn't always there with her because our minds were always filled with worry and stress and big to-do lists based around, what was going on, with our sisters. So, so for all of them, the challenges that they've kind of faced growing up, I think have really made them amazing people, even if I do say so myself.
Oh, no,
so
absolutely.
They're all living, they're all kind of living independently. And we just kind of felt, they were very supportive to us. They said especially the elder two kind of said to us, go and do what you want to do.
Yeah.
Our youngest daughter, they said, she can come to us, we've got homes that she can come to, and because she's in her last year at uni, so she's kind of backwards and forwards a little bit. But the eldest two said, go and do it, live your lives, do what you want to do. I think most of us as parents, we try and get behind what our children, whatever it is they want to do, you're their cheerleader, aren't you? They want to go and try a new sport or a new club or a new activity, a new craft, whatever. You throw yourself into it with them, you try and help them and support them. And I think they've just kind of now done that back for us, which is really, really nice. Yeah. And obviously, if they weren't in such great positions in their lives, then we probably wouldn't have been thinking along the lines of doing what we've done. But we're fortunate that they're all quite settled. So so it was an option for us, and they were very happy and supportive. And it was a big ask really for them because again it's it's the family home, isn't it? That you're kind of that's going. This now the boat now is a family home of a type, but it's not the same. It's not the same,
of course.
And it's not the same as going back to your childhood home, is it? And you can pop up to your old bedroom and lay on the bed for a minute and, or go into the kitchen and open the fridge and you've got a fridge full of stuff, mum's kitchen. It's a little bit different here.
It absolutely is. I find that very intriguing though, because we got to the stage with our family house that my son would come back from university and he would, I remember feeling it as well. You go back to home and it was like, oh, it's comfortable, it's home. And as you say, you go up to your bedroom and it's mum's kitchen or whatever. That familiarity. And then probably after you've been there 24 hours, you're like, oh God, nothing's changed. This is really boring.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
That's the reality of it, isn't it?
It is the reality of it.
It's the idea is actually lasts a lot longer than the actual experience.
Yes. Yeah.
So here's a question for you. What's been the hardest thing about doing what you've done? Because it's extreme.
Yeah, so I think in terms of lifestyle wise, in terms of like the practicalities of day to day and how we live day to day, I don't find that hard. I find it very freeing. I don't
Yeah.
really, that to me has been probably the easiest part of this. Don't find it too hard. I mean, obviously you have to prepare, if weather changes, when things go wrong on the boat, sometimes it's not as easy as, if something goes wrong in a house and you can just jump in the car and you've got B&Q and Wicks and tool station within
Yeah.
easy reach and that kind of thing. This is the logistics of this are all quite different. So I guess in some ways logistics are sometimes a little bit more challenging.
Mm.
I can probably think of a time where we do have a car and we had to park the car about 25 minutes away from where we were moored because that was the closest spot.
Right.
And obviously you've got no street lights, it's very dark, it's pitch black. I think this was in about early April when it was still quite cold and dark and wet earlier this year.
Yeah.
And you're coming back from the supermarket with all your shopping in backpacks, carrying a couple of big bags as well. Yeah. I think I might even have had an overnight bag with me where I'd stayed at my daughter's the night before. And it was absolutely pouring with rain. The dog was soaking wet. He was with us. And you're walking along in the dark and you're thinking, what are we doing? Like, what's brought me here? Yeah. And then we get inside and you open the backpack, you start unpacking your shopping. A bag of oats is split. You've got wet porridge all over the kitchen. Yeah, you have to learn a lot of patience with things. But that's just a little funny story. But there are frequently things that kind of test your patience a little bit. It's always good to grow your patience, isn't it? That's always going to stand you in good stead, is to become a bit more tolerant and a bit less quick to kind of snap and break down. And probably there are times in life where a bag of split porridge oats and a wet environment would have probably tipped me right over the edge. But you just kind of think like, no, this is what we've asked for. This is what we've wanted. And one of the things that kind of I did keep in my mind a lot when we were going through the process of selling the house and, trying to get the boat and, having this lifestyle, we wanted to be challenged. And I remind myself frequently, I wanted to be challenged. And this is a challenge that I'm being given, whether it's a bag of oats splitting or, whether it's a water pump stopping working or, and you haven't got any water, we wanted these challenges and now we've got them. So,
be careful what you ask for.
But no, it's accepting what you've asked for. And not kind of then resenting it or wanting to do it differently. It's just acceptance has been a big kind of theme, I think, through my life in many ways. Acceptance of situations that you can't really change. And now it's acceptance of situations that I called for. Yeah. And,
that's profound. That is absolutely profound because that is completely a life lesson. I mean, so many people say, well, I want to have this life looking like this, so long as, and then you put all the conditions in. It's just like you can't have it both ways.
No, you can't. And I think, when we did some of those long testing walks and things like that, that really kind of, again, that did grow our resilience. Definitely resilience. Getting that resilience physically and mentally has been because when you do the long kind of physical challenges, then that does grow your mental resilience probably more than your physical resilience. It's that when it's cold and it's dark and you're uncomfortable and your boots are rubbing you and your back's sore or something and you're thinking, no, it's got to be one foot in front of the other. So I think growing resilience has been important. And I was kind of very aware as well, and so was Alan, at this this point in life is the time where generally you get very comfortable. The kids have left home, life starts to get a little bit easier. You haven't got the same kind of challenges as you once had when they were small kids and you had to do a huge tick list of jobs and homework and swimming lessons and all the things that you have to fit in with young children. Life gets easier. And it wasn't that we didn't want any, it's not that we want a difficult life, but we kind of didn't want to lose that vitality and that kind of energy where you can go, right, this has happened, so we need to be able to react and respond.
You saying that sort of brings it home about people saying this whole midlife crisis thing. I really believe that the midlife crisis is actually just like you've outgrown the old container.
Absolutely, that 100% that. Yeah,
and
definitely.
You're ready for something new. You've done that chapter. You've done like the raising kids chapter. And think how much that stretched you.
Yes, yeah.
And now you're ready for the next challenge. But as you say, because you're coming off the back of, some years that, depending on what happened with your kids, is more challenging for some than others. But you're coming off the back of that. And now it's this whole open kind of a blank canvas, shall we say?
I think really it's the stage of life where if you don't adapt, and if you don't kind of look at life and think, right, what do I want now? Some of these responsibilities are gone now.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, I just think you would definitely just drift.
And I think you age very fast.
That was really, really important to us, that we didn't kind of get into that kind of comfort trap, really. And I could see that looming if I didn't make some changes. I could see that I wasn't quite in it, but I felt like I could see, that was within sight, really, that you could get into this real kind of comfort zone where everything's a little bit easy now, but it's a bit boring.
Yeah, it is.
And I have to say as well, I know some people really struggle with the empty nest kind of scenario, and I really didn't.
Again,
I'm just lucky, but I also think you have to have a bit of an attitude of, this part of life is, that's been great, but now,
what's next?
That role's not really there anymore, or that the role is still there, but it just changes a lot, doesn't it? And you
I think as your kids would want you to.
Yeah.
They're adults.
Yes, exactly. And I've also been a parent that I've wanted my children to live independently, and I think you live your best life when you're living independently and you've kind of are finding your own way. And, our youngest was still she was still quite young when we did this. But having said that, we knew that we'd still be here for, you're not, because you make a decision to do something different or to live differently, that doesn't mean that you're not still parenting that young person. That doesn't mean, because you choose to move or you're still there, and now it's easier than ever to kind of have this. My girls, I get 3 or 4 FaceTimes a day from my girls. We're always keeping in touch, and we see each other still, very regularly. But I think that you shouldn't have this kind of guilt that, I can't do anything for myself because I've got young people. Your young people kind of almost need you to move on with your life so they can move on with theirs often. But again, that's a very personal choice, and I understand people have different feelings around that. But for me, I've wanted my kids to grow and thrive independently, and I haven't felt that I've wanted to. I try not to look back too much. It's nice to have your memories, and they're always there, and they will pop into your head. But I don't. Because I had a fun time on the school run with them, picking them up from school and holding their little hands, walking home. That doesn't mean that I can't enjoy their independence now. I don't still long for that. I loved that. And it brings a smile to my face just thinking about it. But I just love that they're all living the lives that they need to live now. And, so will we.
Fantastic. So we could talk about this forever because you're completely on all of my favourite subjects, which, we could make another 4 episodes at least about this. But because people have lives to get on with, how can people find you, and how can people find out more about you so they can follow you? Because I think your story is lovely, and I've seen the artwork that you help people do, and it's absolutely beautiful.
Oh, thank you so much. Yeah. So our business is called Waterway Days. Okay. And you can find us on Facebook as Waterway Days with Emma Vallis.
Okay.
And you can find us on Instagram as waterway_days.
Okay.
And you can also follow me on my personal profile on Facebook, because I share a lot of work on there as well. So that's Emma Vallis.
Fantastic. Okay. And obviously all the links will be under the show in the show notes.
They will.
Anyway.
Yeah. Thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, Emma, thank you so much. It's been an absolute joy to meet you.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. You too. And I'm glad that we share a lot of the same mindsets. Fantastic.
Yes, we do. Thanks for listening to the show today. If you enjoyed it and you found it inspirational and motivational and encouraging, please do leave a review. I'd be so grateful. Also, below this episode, you'll find resources to help you through your midlife journey. There is also the community in the Facebook group. And I will see you in next week's episode. And thank you so much for listening. Take care. Bye.